Politicians don't understand people who do good simply because it's right. It makes them nervous.
Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. I even got my Kyle Seraphin Show t-shirt on today. Today is Tuesday. It is August the 6th, and we're going to get into some really odd, uncomfortable topics. You guys know I'm kind of like an America-only guy, but if I was going to care about other countries, it would probably be places like the UK. I lived in the UK for a little bit when I was in college. I've got a little bit of a sense of that. I don't have a ton of qualifications to talk about it. I'll just be real honest with you. But I have worked a little bit with the British Intelligence Service, and I've seen what they're about, and I actually saw them doing things that are fairly DEI-focused and or woke. We're going to talk about a little bit of that. I don't know if it's just gone to pot, but it looks like people are starting to wake up in the UK and they don't like what they see. We're going to cover down on that. We're going to talk about Kamala. Can't help it. She's been coronated. Man, it's always funny when the media actually uses the correct word. And coronation was the word that I saw across all the platforms, and then they sort of like pulled it. That was last night. Today, they're like, oh, that wasn't a good idea. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I don't know if there's another precedent where this has happened in that way. So I'm going to have to actually refer to you guys. I'm going to ask you guys to do some digging for me because I couldn't find it. Maybe there is. We'll talk more about that. Let's see what else we're going to get into. The so-called civil war, which is what Elon Musk talked about. Talk about Google. We're going to get into some Joe Rogan stuff. Yeah, we're going to get offensive today. So I hope you guys stick around and make sure you guys have hit the like button. Make sure you are joining us in the live chat if you like to do so. The live chat is now open on YouTube. It is open on X. It is open on Facebook if somebody is so strange as to be there. But otherwise, we are over on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. And come on over and join us. I should stop hitting my microphone. All right. Before we get into the show today, I want to say thanks to my sponsors, as specifically, this is a real salient one, and it is a good time to talk about it. Let's talk about emergency food preparation. Stop what you're doing. Listen to this. You guys know that your God-given freedoms are up for the taking, and the worst part is that those doing the taking are the people sworn to defend it. Folks think they can take and violate your rights to protect your family. They think they can force delusions on your children, and they think that they can control the media and hide the truth. Actually, a topic we're talking about in just a bit. You know what they can't take away is that peace of mind, that self-reliance. You guys should be having water filtration. You should have a charged solar generator, emergency food on your shelf, and you can do that at My Patriot Supply, just like I did. They've served millions of American families. It is the most trusted name in survival for a damn good reason. Go to preparelikekyle.com right now. Save $200 on their best-selling 3-month emergency food kit. It gives you up to 2,000 calories a day. They are sealed in practically unpierceable packaging. Of course, you can pierce it if you want to. Lasts for up to 25 years. Did I mention the food is good and it will keep you alive? That is the key. Go to preparelikekyle.com. Save $200 per kit. There's free shipping. That's a big thing when you're talking about 110 pounds of food. Preparelikekyle.com. You guys are going to think about that more. I actually put a picture of that up on X before I signed off for the weekend, and people were like, oh, yeah. Yeah, you should get that. You should get that, people. You should figure it out. Let's do it. All right. Let's jump right into this. Two little things that we're going to show here. One of them is from ABC News. That's the top headline. She earns the majority of Democratic roll call votes, achieving a historic presidential nomination. She's been the presumptive nominee since Friday. Donald Trump has been the presumptive nominee of the RNC for like 2 years. Kamala Harris, sent the weekend. No big deal. Nothing foul afoot here. The party of so-called democracy, literally named the Democratic Party, did about the least democratic thing that you can do. They engaged in a coronation. And that screenshot is coming from CNN. It's what I saw last night before I went to bed. Harris's coronation. You know, that's when they put the crown on you. Do you know who else was being coronated? Hillary Clinton. Let's hope it goes the same way. I honestly cannot stand that these people are so blatantly fake. It's disgusting. She has capped a tumultuous and frenetic period for the Democrats. No, she just stole the democratic process that they keep crying about out from underneath the people that supposedly voted for Joe Biden. Now, I don't know if it is the case, but I looked in a couple of different sources, and my cursory look as I was doing some other things this morning, I wasn't able to find an example of a presidential party nominee from either party that had no primary votes, at least not in modern history. And I went back into, how far back did we go? We went back to like Andrew Jackson. I couldn't find one. Maybe you guys can. But I went to the 1830s and I didn't see an example of it. So if there is an example, let's say in the last 150 years, I'd like to know about it. Make sure you guys put that in the chat. Is there such a thing as someone not actually engaging in the process and then being coronated as the nominee? It's truly wild to watch these people plug values, say one thing, and then ignore them completely. And here's the other thing, that computer chip change, that instantaneous flip. Now we got white dudes for Harris and all the other AstroTurf garbage. Is this a thing that Democrats are going to stand for? I cannot believe that there's any real support behind her. The whole bump, yes, it's way more exciting to have Kamala Harris, who has a pulse and can stand upright and is not defeated by the wind. That's probably really exciting for you if you're a Democrat. But is it enough for you to get out there and do anything about it? I'm just cringing at it. I really am. My belief is that the poll that CBS showed the other day, which they did not highlight the biggest piece, almost the largest number of voters, like 41% of the people, it was the single biggest block of potential Kamala Harris voters, were voting or say they would vote for Kamala against Donald Trump. But it was like in the 20s and in the 30s saying, it came out to about a 60%, like 59%. Those things were excitement about Kamala and then the fact that she just was a Democrat with a pulse. This is the glass of water with a D after their name. It's not real. Like nobody is asking for more Kamala the way that we were looking for more cowbell in Don't Fear the Reaper. You guys remember that skit, right? There was an SNL skit, and Will Ferrell, and he's walking around, and they're doing Don't Fear the Reaper, and they're doing a music video, and he's doing the recording with the cowbell. Incidentally enough, and weirdly enough, last night, my 11-month-old was kind of being fussy and didn't want to sleep, and I actually sang her to sleep with Blue Oyster Cult's Don't Fear the Reaper. So that's the kind of kids that I'm raising, whatever that means. And then my 3-year-old woke me up this morning or came into my room first thing, and he was wearing an eagle outfit, and he told me that he was an eagle. So that's what we're about here in the Seraphin house. We're about freedom. Not so in the Democrat Party. There's some fun clips that are being dug up. Why? Because Kamala Harris is not doing press conferences. Where is she? How come she's not out there talking? How come, since she's basically taken over for Joe Biden, why is she not popping up there and giving everybody a taste of what she's about? She's showing up at a couple of little rallies. She had some rappers. Donald Trump sat down with some Atlanta business people. That was the contrast that was being shown last night on social media that I saw. Kamala Harris, ass-shaking twerkers. Donald Trump, a bunch of black business people in Atlanta. That was the thing. One of them is far more serious. And who would have imagined that Donald Trump is the more serious of people? He's kind of a performer, a showman, and he's still more serious than this clown. When you listen to this clip, which I'm going to play you in a second, I don't know who the audience is, but if you've ever given a public speech, and I've done a few, and I've seen a lot, there is probably no worse tactic than laughing louder, longer, harder, and for more time than the audience is laughing at your own joke, which was not funny to begin with. There's sympathy laughter that you're going to hear. This woman is nuts. And I really mean it. I mean, she doesn't have it. That's the laugh of fear of someone who is so utterly untalented. They have no business being in the position they're in, and they're terrified that someone's going to find out. So here's a little taste of Kamala Harris telling you how hard it is to be a woman, and that very important balance you have to strike. I was thinking this morning as I was making coffee, There isn't a single woman in America that I would want to see as president of the United States. Somebody throw me in the chat an example of someone that would be a great option. I cannot think of any at all. But that actually goes with sort of the way that I think about the world. I just don't really care for women being in politics at all. Any of them. None of them. So I'll just be totally honest with you. That doesn't mean that women are not incredibly valuable and really important. I just don't want that for them because then they end up in this weird spot.
And as a woman, there's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch. Turn that off.
You guys are answering my question. Carrie Lake, no. Tulsi Gabbard, absolutely not. Riley Gaines, no. Like, what are you people nuts? Like, who are you picking? What kind of crazy ideas are you coming up with? No, none of those people. Margaret Thatcher, she's a Brit and she's dead. I don't think that works. All right, so none of that. Listen, she's been coronated. She's been chosen. And we know that she cannot withstand the pressure. There's a narrative going on right now that Donald Trump is running scared. We're going to go ahead and destroy that, I think, in real time. Here's a little piece coming, an opinion piece out of the New York Post, and I want to cover this one well. Kamala updates Joe Biden's basement campaign. She's doing the same thing that Joe did in 2020, hoping that there's enough hatred against Donald Trump and that they can steal it. And yeah, I say that because even though I don't have the evidence, and neither do you, by the way, and all the people that have presented it, either I don't understand it or I don't know the sourcing of it. I cannot validate that the election was stolen in 2020. But what I can say is the FBI didn't investigate it, even though there were credible questions about it. A lot of them. And a lot of people that I saw that said, hey, what's going on? Don't we have a responsibility to step up and investigate these credible claims like, hey, there's some video footage of this truck pulling up and it's pulling out all these boxes. Like, should we find out what that is about? And the people that went and asked that, especially when they asked it up the chain. And you know what's really interesting? And I'm just thinking about this now. My boss, who was a really good guy, he's a West Pointer and a Ranger Regiment alumni, was an HRT member for about a decade, came out, became our supervisor. Good dude. Fair. I didn't agree with him on everything, but I think he was a fair person. He was asked and said that he would take those questions up the chain. And he took him up the chain. When he came back, he looked like a whipped dog. And he said, I totally have faith in the FBI. And he just looked like someone had just plugged in these words and he was not feeling it. He took a transfer out of that unit and he left the FBI before the 20-year mark, like 17 years in. He went out to Colorado. I'm not going to say where specifically, but he went out to Colorado and then he left the bureau. And I think he went to go pursue like children who had been kidnapped across the globe because that was his passion. And he decided not to stick around. And I kind of thought he was a weird guy at the time. I remember thinking, hey, you know, this guy's got some strange ideas. He told us that he didn't get his kids vaccinated. How interesting. I thought he was weird at the time. And I've sort of probably aligned up with a lot of the things that he thought. Very Christian, really decent person. And the one thing that I just recalled, just sitting here talking to you all, is that the person that he went up the chain to was a woman named Jennifer Lee Moore. And Jen Moore was the person that suspended all of the suspendables. Every one of them. She's the one who signed off on it. Somebody who was in the pocket of the regime right away. In any case, we're talking about the New York Post, this basement strategy, still hiding, but it's behind a teleprompter. We're going to read a little bit of it. She isn't in the cellar of the Naval Observatory using Zoom calls to campaign the way that Joe Biden did in 2020. She's speaking to fans who have pop stars that are out there. She's identified herself with powerful, if somewhat esoteric cultural trends, and she's clapping back against Donald Trump with panache. The thing is that she's gone from subpar vice president to the second coming of Barack Obama in the span of 2 weeks. The point being made here is that we keep seeing how great she is. She went from cringe to cool. Remember Van Jones talking about this on CNN. The points have been marched out. You guys just caught my eye. Sarah Connor would be an okay. She would be an okay president. Sarah Connor, the woman from Terminator 2, a fictional character. So yeah, there you go. She has marched out like she has done something, and she is getting all of the praise without ever lifting a finger. She hasn't done any of the hard work of it. And in fact, all the work that is behind her shows that she's terrible. She's done a really, really, really bad job. And they're starting to even acknowledge that as yesterday's market crash kind of got punched out there. There's some fun stories and reporting that we're going to play on. I want you guys to understand a little bit more of how dumb she is. I'm going to play the cloud computing thing from yesterday. Again, when this woman is off script, that's why she has to hide behind the teleprompter. That's why she's doing the modified basement campaign. When you get her off script, she sounds like a drunken version of Dr. Seuss that's been hanging out with, Nancy Pelosi and doing the day drinking. And here's a taste of it. I've got one more where you can see even the white women that are inclined to sort of support her. And I think that that's the only real base of support that Kamala Harris has. The white women, my mother-in-law said this one time. She said, if only we had a black woman running the country, like we'd be in great shape. And I was like, that's racist and weird. And two, why? And she was like, they just get stuff done. It's like, do they? All black women? Hot takes. Listen, there are people out there that believe this. So here's a little taste of the cloud computing again. She's talking about something that is beyond her comprehension. At least when you don't know what you're talking about, start up front with that. Don't try to explain it like a toddler. But she continues to talk to people like a kindergarten teacher. Maybe that's the lure for some of these like leftist white women, that they just want to be talked to like an infant.
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right? Mm-hmm. It's no longer in a physical place.
It's not in a physical place. Do you like when she said, it's above us, right? And she asked the question, and whoever the interviewer is like, are we doing this? Yeah, we're going to keep doing this. We have to. And then we're also finding out today, like first thing this morning, and I haven't double checked it, but it looks like there's some reporting saying that Tim Walz, she needed an older white man to step into the gap, and that's going to be her VP running mate. So nominated, nobody knew who she was going to pick as the running mate, and that's it. She shouldn't be this dumb. But isn't Tim Walz the same guy that was telling us that one person's progressivism and another person's socialism, and don't let our progressive values be compromised? She tacked hard left to an older white man. Kind of like, that's kind of her jam, isn't it? Going with like older, more established political types. Here's her telling you to stay woke. This is what this is about. Like, this is about radical people trying to get in. And I don't know, did they just scrap the campaign and just say like Donald Trump has got this thing locked up? I doubt it. All of this makes me think more and more that we are not going to have anything that resembles a normal election. We've already seen somebody coronated before the coronation. Usually the coronation is after, that's the election. You remember the polls were all saying Hillary Clinton was dominating. Donald Trump had no chance. So I only put so much stock in any of the polls. This woman is decidedly untalented. Here's another taste of her laughing at her own jokes more than anybody else, and the other people on the stage cringing.
We have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. and you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
If you're the only person laughing at your jokes, that just means that you're decidedly uncomfortable and you're probably in the wrong space. Whoa. Just gross and weird. Are we ready for that at the Resolute desk? She's not bright, people. She's like one of the smart, stupid people is the only way to call it. The smart, stupid people. She's not bright, but she's been able to be capable of manipulating a system to work in her favor. So here you are. CBS was initially saying that they were going to be announcing this morning, and it sounds like she already has. So we'll just move on from this little story. This is the update here that I'm seeing as I refresh the page is that she selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and so that's what the sources have said. We kind of knew that yesterday. If you guys follow attention or pay attention to Twitter, there was a motorcade that went and picked him up. So this was kind of inbound. This was not surprising for some of us. This is what I want to kind of focus on for a moment, though. Everything was going her way for all like 3 weeks that she's been in the race. And can we say that again? She's been in the race for about 3 weeks and change. She sat for no primaries. She had to do zero campaigning for any of that. She was able to raise like $200 million simply because she has a pulse, and she's far more exciting than Joe Biden, allegedly. So this is kind of fun when you see these little stories. This is coming from Politico. I kind of touched on a couple of different places here. Their election 2024 section says everything was going Kamala's way. And then came the market sell-off. Now there's some pushback from CNN that I found that was kind of interesting. And I don't know where I sit on this. I tend to be one of those people that when the markets go crazy, I just take a breath. I don't put all of my money in a stock market. I think that's bad. I think that there are better ways to earn money and there are more stable ways. And the stock market always seemed to me like a casino game where there's certain people that are playing on behalf of the house and you don't know who they are and they're able to do things to you. So you're kind of along for the ride and hope that you've saddled yourself to the right whale. I don't really like that. And anybody that tells me that they have the fail-safe system to it, if you've never lost any money in the stock market and you only win all the time, hit us up. We'll promote your story. This is a thing. Someone from the DNC said, we cannot win if people think that we're headed into a recession. Democrats aren't ready for the Kamala Harris honeymoon to end. How long is the honeymoon supposed to last? Like a fortnight? It's long enough. We're into the third or fourth week now, so it's time. Monday's stock market plunge is a reminder to them that it cannot last forever. The global stock market tumble represent a dramatic reversal from the cooling inflation and the steady growth of the economists that are talking about this stuff. Like, really, people? They all want to try to tell you that something is happening. They want to tell you that things are great. The problem is that reality will continue to smack you in the face. I actually saw a story on the Washington Post page, and it was just below the fold, talking about how you can save money by eating food that is destined for the garbage. And it was under their climate section. Do you know who talks about eating food that's in the garbage? People who are trying to not starve to death. That's a strange place for America to be in this incredible economy that keeps growing and a miraculous amount of unemployment numbers and all the other kind of things that they try to tout. And I did have a video about this, but it just wasn't great. There's a Republican strategist who was on CNN talking about it, where the white liberal leftist ladies, and that's who they are, they're the same people, and they're like, like, I do this for a living. Like, I know what the economy is doing. And he said, honestly, what you're saying here with your money and living in this northeastern city with a good job that pays a lot more than the average, yeah, of course it doesn't affect you. It affects people who have daily wage jobs, who are living in the regular parts of America that are not in elite backgrounds and elite jobs. And she was like, well, I'm not trying to diminish the plight of the poor or other people. It's like, how about just the plain working class? In theory, Democrats try to present themselves as being the party of the working man and or woman. But are they? We've talked about it here extensively. When you continue to bring people in that are going to compete with the lowest wage earners in this country, I don't know how you make that argument. And moreover, if those people don't understand that argument is out there and that it's being made, like, there's no hope for them. We used to always wonder when I was the only thing that I remember thinking politically when I was in my early 20s was, why did certain people vote against their own best interests? And in theory, people who didn't have money or didn't have a lot of money, when they voted for Republicans, it was a little bit confusing. And I didn't really care one way or another. I wasn't a political guy. Many of you were not either. The question was always something like this. If the Democrats are giving more things away from government, shouldn't you be wanting that? And the answer that I realized as I got older is it's a section about hope, or it's a little subset of your personality that says whether you are hopeful. Like, I'm not wealthy today, but I could be. Is the mindset that makes you say, I don't want the rich taxed because I expect one day to be richer than I am, and I don't want to pay extra taxes. That is a decidedly American attitude. It is a mindset towards the future. And you don't have that if you're voting for government handouts. So voting against your own self-interest is kind of this weird little animal that it also depends on how you see yourself, not just today, but in the future. And I suppose if you're going to continue to vote for the things on the political left, there's two ways about it. There's the elite folks who think that they have all the money and they need to be told how to give it, and that government's going to be the sort of charity that they need to be supporting. I guess that's a take. It's like, would you voluntarily pay more taxes? No. Do you go find tax loopholes and try to pay less? Yes. Why? Why do you keep voting for more taxes when you want to pay less? That doesn't seem that's not logical. Those people, I think, are a little nuts. But the people that don't have any money, that are relatively poor, broke, or impoverished, or whatever, and they're voting sort of for a living, at least I understand them, right up until the point where you're opening the borders up and trying to do this like competition with yourself. It is now diametrically opposed to your best interests. And I hope that they continue to make this point. I hope that this is a point the GOP hammers on. In any case, this little global stock market hiccup is a really good example of it. And then here's the reason why I sometimes get a little weirded out, because CNN and I kind of agree on this. The stock market panicked, but you shouldn't. Generally speaking, that is the right answer. Just because the Dow tumbles 1,000 points, just because we're seeing stocks sinking 3%, and it's just the 15th time in the index is 128 year. The VIX average, or the VIX index, was spiking. That's the volatility index. All of these things. Okay, yeah, I'm tracking. Take a deep breath, because you didn't lose any money. I mean, my 401k dropped by thousands and thousands of dollars, and I know my wife's did as well. But we didn't lose anything. I still have the same number of, stocks that just are worth less on paper, and I haven't monetized it. So I haven't actualized that loss. I haven't realized it. And most of you are in the same situation, unless you find yourself in one of those games where you are now reliant on that money, and that money is now sizably less, and you're withdrawing from it on a regular basis. So that's my retirees and all of you out there that are on that sort of fixed income, or if you're on some sort of annuity that is tied to the market. Got it. I saw one of you just say gold IRAs. Gold IRAs, if you guys have any idea, can I just go on a rant for a moment? I've had multiple companies reach out and offer to sponsor us for thousands and thousands of dollars a month. I've probably turned down north of $50,000 a year on gold IRAs. And the reason is because I don't believe in them. And let me tell you a little bit about gold IRAs that nobody else will tell you. When somebody is advertising for a gold IRA, not only do they usually get paid a flat rate, it might be $3,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month, for even not very big shows. They're going to pay thousands of dollars a month in advertising for the gold IRA. On top of that, they get a percentage of every IRA that rolls over. And it's like a big percentage, like 10%. Do you have any idea how much margin has to be in for you to roll over like a $250,000 IRA, and they give a $25,000 bonus to the person that referred you? Plus they're paying that person a monthly? Guys, they pay big money for people to convert into gold IRAs. It's the reason why I don't do it. And I don't know anybody that has really big wealth that has a ton of money that they've rolled over and decided to hold all of their holdings in that. There's way better ways to do it. If you guys want to see, there's a little good clip running around from PBD podcast talking about assets that are appreciating and assets that are not. Anyway, there's a ton of money in getting you to go to a gold IRA, and a lot of them are on the conservative side. We have a little bit of a principles thing here where I turn away folks that I do not want to represent. I'm just telling you right now. I've had bullion companies reach out, and I'm like, yeah, pay me in bullion. Give me a stack of silver, and I'll put it in the back here. If you want to sell silver at like a little bit over spot, there's no way that there's enough money for them to be able to make it on that. They don't make money on you stacking precious metals. They make money on you rolling big dollars over into something like that. I'm just letting you know. Take it for whatever it's worth. It's free advice, so you paid for it. While we do that, let's pay a bill real quick. And let's say thanks to my buddies at Patriot Coolers. They do pay us. They do make a little bit of money off us, and they make a little money off you when you guys go buy a great product. This is the exchange that I'm down with. You get a great product for a great amount of money, and you get a discount by using our promo code KYLE. Patriot Coolers is the company that we support. They've been supporting us since the very beginning, since we had about 2,000 followers, and we are now 10x more, 11x, I think, than what we had right then. PatriotCoolers.com is the website. Go to their website. It's a good-looking website. They're based out of Houston, Texas. They ship quickly all over the country, and they have great-looking products. This is the one that we have that's etched out, so you can get them customized if you want with suspendable stuff. You can get them customized with anything else you like, too. They've got all kinds of nice little designs. You can have them printed on or laser-etched. Promo code KYLE will basically knock off the cost, or pretty darn close, of any sort of customization you do. And if you spend $50 or more, you're going to get free shipping, which is a decent deal as well. I hate paying for shipping. I'd rather spend my money on the actual product. You guys can do that at patriotcoolers.com. The links are always in the show description, and it'll remind you that our promo code is KYLE. Thanks to Rose for putting it in the chat like she often does. I won't say always, but I will say often. All right. The narrative line that is getting pushed out there is that Donald Trump is running scared. And I promise you, we will get to the UK thing, and we've got a bunch of that. The narrative line is that Donald Trump is running scared. Do you know who is running scared? People on the left are running scared. There's no doubt in my mind about it. Let me give you some examples. They tried to knock him off the ballot for the primary. They didn't even hold a real primary for Kamala Harris. Do you see this insanity? This is coming from MSNBC, so our hard leftist friends. Why the September, I don't know why I said friends, but I mean it in air quotes. Why the September 10th debate is shaping up to be a win-win for Kamala Harris. Trump is chickening out of an agreed-upon debate. Harris is responding wisely. That is utter and complete bullshit. No two ways about it. Imagine that you have agreed to do something. Let's say it's a debate. Let's not make a debate. Let's make it pugilistic. We've seen some men punching women in the Olympics. Let's talk about something like that. Agreed, you're a woman and you've decided to fight a woman. You agreed because that person kept goading you over and over again, and you're like, whatever, she's weak. I'm going to throw some punches. I'm stronger. I don't know, whatever. Maybe you're MTG and you do CrossFit. And they sub in a man. Donald Trump agreed to debate Joe Biden under Joe Biden's preconceived rules and the layout and the format. Those were all decided on with one contender in mind. Harris is essentially a ringer. If you agreed to get into a boxing match with your neighbor and your neighbor's like, by the way, I'm tapping in my champion and my champion is Mike Tyson. These are bad analogies only because Kamala Harris is not nearly that talented. But Trump could basically debate Joe Biden anywhere, under any circumstances, under any conditions, and dominate him. Why? Because Trump is a sentient human being and Joe Biden is a human Roomba. He just dodders about, right? He just bounces back and forth until he runs out of battery, which happens somewhere in the middle of the debate. Kamala Harris is a different animal, different rules. We've already done the debate on CNN. We've already done the empty room and the biased commentators. So Trump has said, I'd like to do this on Fox. They're framing that as weakness. No, Trump is not going to benefit from going on another partisan thing. He's also claimed that there's a lawsuit that they have going against Joe Scarborough and ABC as a network. Those are all probably true. I have to imagine they might be true. So that's fine. He's backed out of the debate. He's foolish if he agrees to it. I actually thought he was kind of foolish going on CNN. It turned out that he dominated Joe because they actually knew that Joe Biden can't perform anywhere. And that makes more sense in retrospect. At the time, I was like, man, is that really where you're going to go? I wouldn't. The fact of the matter is it is not, it's not being cowardly. It's being wise. And there's nothing that Kamala Harris can do in a real debate with a real audience where she's the last one, if she's the last one laughing. And this is why this is nonsensical. Those clips that I played you earlier, where she's still the last one laughing on stage to a people that are like a friendly audience. Those are like lib panels that she's talking to. No way. No way she gets up in front of an audience where she's the last one laughing at the podium when she says some weird, quirky thing because she's terrible on the fly. Donald Trump knows how to read a crowd. He's a professional. People say he's like a comedian. I don't think he's that funny. I actually have some comedian clips for a little bit later. But he's good. And he knows what his audience looks like, and he's able to tune it. Some people are not. Some people are totally tone deaf, and that is Kamala Harris for you. This is the other reason that I don't think that Trump is running scared. Again, we talked about the situation in Colorado. We talked about the situation in Maine. They've gone after him with both state and federal indictments, right? They tried to get Donald Trump, and I'm not saying they're done, but they certainly were doing some attacks on Donald Trump that are far more aggressive than like worrying about the debate stage. I don't think Donald Trump worries about that at all. It just needs to be a little bit more fair. So good on him. Here's Jamie Raskin. You remember that guy that used to wear a bandana? He was like a Crip or a Blood on every given day and then apparently had cancer. But this is him talking about real tyranny. This is what real tyranny looks like. And they're completely casual about this. This is like at a book sale or something. And I don't think this is new. From my understanding, this is just before the Supreme Court came out and announced the decision in favor of Trump being on the ballot in Colorado for the primary, because the Republicans actually had primaries. This is Jamie Raskin talking about his real fear and the need to get rid of all the Trump supporters and using the government for violence. It's an analog to what we talked about yesterday. And since I didn't talk about the guard tower nearly as much, I will right after this little video clip.
Well, last night I was most worried about the Supreme Court's prospective imminent abdication of its very clear duty to disqualify Donald Trump from the ballot under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And what that might mean if their decision says that it's really up to Congress on January 5th or January 6th, 2025, to disqualify him at the counting of the Electoral College votes, which really could lead to something akin to civil war, if that's what the suggestion is, which is what I think I heard when I went to the oral argument, that they themselves were unwilling to rule whether or not the Colorado Supreme Court was correct in finding that he had engaged in insurrection on January 6, 2021. So, but that was just last night's worry. So that,
We all just laugh about tyranny. Listen, here's the metaphor of the guard tower, because this is what I wanted you to take away from yesterday, and I realized I wasn't explicit about it. If you didn't watch yesterday's show with Sonia Labosco, go back and watch that. Make sure that you understand what our federal government has done. When we talk about weaponized government, the metaphor of the guard tower is something you can all walk away with. And I'll probably hammer this home at the end of the show. The guard tower is the metaphor for two things: the possibility for surveillance and security, right? It's an overwatch position. Think about it inside of a prison context. Think about it on a wall looking out into the outside threat. What we want is a government that engages in watchtower behavior, that looks abroad and sees threats to our nation and says, hey, you're a problem. We're going to make sure that you don't get in. We're going to call out a warning, fire the warning shots, have an embedded machine gun up there to make sure that the marauders and the barbarians don't make it up to the gate. That is a guard tower that is functional as a federal government. That's what I want from my federal government. I don't need law enforcement from my federal government. I got a state police, and I've also got a county with a sheriff's department, and I've got a city with a local police department. So when you have a sheriff's office and a police department and a state police, those things are plenty at the state level for me. I don't need federal government doing it. And the value proposition of the FBI doing this interstate problem, solving these things, they don't exist at the same way that they used to. I'd rather see some locals deputized under Title 18 and 21, and then they can bring it to federal prosecutors. Way better idea. This has been mine from the beginning. But the guard tower can be turned inward, can't it? And that's when your nation becomes a prison. And when your guard tower, the people that are meant to be watching and creating security at the highest level, the guard tower, way up high, are looking inward, and they are pointing out threats in the yard, it is a prison. So we can have a protected nation, like a walled city on a hill that is looking for evil coming in, or you can look for the evil within. We've been doing this slowly and more increasingly since 9/11. I think that is the problem. It started with the pivot from international terrorism to what they call HVEs, and it has now continued to the point where Tulsi Gabbard, who is not a conservative and cannot convince me that she is a great candidate for anything. I will never vote for Tulsi Gabbard until I hear a lot more from her. I kind of want her to just sit down. But Tulsi Gabbard doesn't need to be under surveillance by our federal government. Just like I don't need to be, and Garrett O'Boyle doesn't need to be, and Steve Friend doesn't need to be, and none of you need to be under surveillance by our federal government for not being alleged to be involved in a crime. If you are part of the threat landscape, then we are dealing with a tyrannical police state. And that is the argument of the movie PoliceState, which I was a part of from last year with Dinesh D'Souza. The guard tower mentality, it tells you the relative health of a nation. If the guard tower is pointed outward, we're doing okay. And when it begins to pivot towards the yard, we are more and more like a prison. And here's someone that is helping it. This is going on. This is a good step. The judiciary continues to work in our favor in small ways. This story is coming from NPR. You know I love leftist sources. Why? Because at least I'm going to have something that I might disagree with. Google loses a massive antitrust case over its search dominance. This was updated yesterday. It's a story that they are taking from the AP, and they are writing out a highly anticipated decision in the U.S. District Court. Comes nearly a year after the start of the trial, pitting the U.S. Justice Department against Google, which is very interesting. Google has been essentially adjudicated to be a monopoly in the search engine market. So here's the direct quote in a 277-page ruling. After I have carefully considered and weighed the witness testimony and evidence, the court reaches the following conclusion. Google is a monopolist, and it has acted as one in order to maintain its monopoly. It enjoys an 89.2% share of the market for general searches, which increases to 94.9% on mobile devices. That's a major upset for Google and the parent company, which is called Alphabet. They have dominated this market to the point where it is a verb. And one of the scariest thing, I think, is that gives them complete and utter control over the news cycle when they want to. If that's where your search goes, and many people do that. I use Google searches on a regular basis. I'm aware that I'm going to get skewed results. Sometimes that's useful for me. It's important to consider what they are hiding when they do this stuff. And they are hiding things. The next story we're going to talk about is one of those. These are the Google search results if you type in Muslims patrolling UK, which was something that was trending across Twitter or X yesterday, and something that I saw a number of videos on. I'm going to show you them. If you're listening to the audio show, you'll know we're about 40 minutes in right now, and this is the time when you're going to want to come in and make sure that you see the video presentation. Why? Because these videos, they don't have a lot of verbal dialogue. They have a lot of sound, but the sound is not going to be that great, and I'll probably cut a lot of it out for the audio show. So it's just not going to be that conducive. You need to actually see this stuff. There's nothing more than like the sound of cars and the sounds of, vehicles running around and maybe some people yelling in a crowd. But I do want to show this because this is pretty wild. These are the search results. One of them shows that the police are dealing with far-right protesters after a third night of riots. This is Southport. This is the area where there was a 17-year-old Rwandan child of immigrants who stabbed children at a Taylor Swift dance thing. It's not the first time this has happened. There are more people getting stabbed in the UK. There are Muslim men that are gathering en masse. I'm going to show you some of them. But the only search results that you see that are related to are about the far-right protesters, who are apparently the problem, if you want to believe that. Except there's pretty good evidence that this is a double-sided problem, and the far right is the actual reaction to it. And they've had enough, probably for good reason. All the other search results you see are old. They are not relevant. They are years and years old. They are not covering this. There's a total blackout. And so when you have a monopoly on the mechanism, it reminds me of that James Bond flick, which came out when I was probably in high school, if I have to remember, maybe in college. It was Die Another Day, I think. No, Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies was the story about being able to control the news cycle. And Google is doing that in real time. And their motto used to be do nothing evil. They're clearly involved in doing things that are evil right now. So here is the coverage. I actually had to go to, I think it's MSNBC. Like, where the hell did I even get this stuff? I went to, here, let's start with this one. Let's start with Elon Musk talking about it because he got in trouble for saying this and he went back. BBC reporting Elon Musk criticized or hits back after the Prime Minister of the UK said that his Civil War post was inappropriate. The guy's name is Sir Keir Starmer, if I'm saying that, or Starmer, if I'm saying it correctly. They're in a war of words, allegedly, that because Elon Musk went out on Twitter, on X, and said civil war is inevitable. That's what's happening after seeing violent unrest in the UK. And what we're seeing, the definition of the word war could be very, malleable at this point. It's certainly going to have some localized conflict, and it certainly does look pretty interesting when you see that there are people involved in clashes. This is like maybe 4th and 5th generation war. There's sort of like guerrilla fighting happening in some streets. People are attacking in non-traditional warfare. Prime Minister said there's no justification for anyone saying these things and that social media companies can and should be doing more. I actually have a little bit about that at the end of today's show as well. But we're seeing people that are getting arrested for inappropriate posts on Facebook. And I have that video for you. So this is British cops. This is how it kind of starts for me. When the Brits are willing to come into your home, and then I'm going to show you some of the, let's say, thuggery that's going on, which you can only say if it's about white people, but we're going to say it about anybody. This is the contrast. So they're coming into your home because they didn't like your Facebook post. Well, watch this. If you haven't seen this, and many of you probably already have, this is appalling. This is probably the last of the clips that are going to be making much sense to you regarding the audio only show. So here we go. Little taste.
Okay. So,
what do you mean I can't have any alcohol?
okay, well, I'll tell you. Okay, the time's 20 to 3, 14:40. I'm arresting you on suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network. I'm just
What?
127 of the Communications Act, okay? So you do not have to say that it may harm your defence if you don't mention one question, something which you later are in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand that?
So I'm actually being arrested?
You're going to be arrested, okay?
Right.
So you got to the police station.
Right.
You, okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page. Okay?
Oh, really? Oh, it's a Facebook crime, is it?
Okay.
Right.
So we need to ask you some questions about that.
Right.
And we need to ask you some questions about your Facebook page and your Facebook. And he's like, it's a Facebook crime, is it? It's a Facebook crime now. All right. Why can I not have any alcohol? Because you're going to the police station. We're going to be taking... She's an attractive young lady. What on earth is she doing as a police officer? Like, I guess you must live in the most civilized society. And then meanwhile, you see police officers injured in violent acts of thuggery outside the hospital. We did show you that the other day, the hospital being burned down. This is the thing that they're not showing you. And I don't see it on any of the main news sites, although I do see that there's plenty of stuff talking about how there are quote unquote far right protests and far right riots and people are acting inappropriately. They can only get one shot. In fact, let me throw you the thumbnail for today up. So you see the thumbnail. That's one shot, which is the same fire, which they had to go and get down. Now, this is the reason why Mark Naughton and I were doing some things together. When you go and you take a shot and you get down by the ground and you shoot through the fire and you show, it looks like there's fire everywhere. But the fire covered about as much space as you see on the screen right now, which is maybe like a 5 foot by 5 foot square. They burned a couple of things and they threw a trash dumpster, which they call a wheelie bin, which is kind of funny. When that's the case, you're going to ignore this. We played this for you yesterday. These are Muslim men that are armed with axes and knives, and they are marching, and they are covering their faces, and they are walking around the green. We've got a couple more of these. This is very specific stuff, so let's just keep getting into it. Again, this is about where the audio show was going to not make much sense. Now you're thinking, hey, is that Tim Waltz's Minneapolis? No. That's something I think it's in Birmingham. So here's another thing. These are drivers in Birmingham who have taken over a green space in the middle of the town. And we've got cars buzzing around. So that you'll hear a little bit of that. You'll see people attacking motorists, people being Muslim men attacking British families who are like jumping the curb and running away. So let's take a little look at this. And then I'll show you the police's response to that. And it's not a pretty lady reading you your rights in your house telling you can't have alcohol.
Shit.
All right, there's a lot of people there. There's another clip that I don't have right now, but there was a family that was basically getting their windows beaten in, like we've seen a lot of leftist mobs do, or apparently pro-Palestine mobs, and they end up jumping that green space that you see in the middle and trying to drive through it. So, of course, the police were called, and they decided to respond, by running from the Muslim group, the protester, rioters, whatever you want to call this. The police run away from it. Don't let the funny music fool you. This is like a satire music piece. There they go. Off they run, all running away. So that's interesting. I went and looked up some stuff on the AP, and it says, what's behind the anti-immigrant violence that's exploded across Britain? Oh, really? And they're showing like white guys getting dragged off by the cops. They have no problem engaging in that sort of thing. The thing that blew my mind was a little place called the Clumsy Swan Pub, which is a place in Birmingham. And they came forward as of an hour ago before we started the show, so probably 2 hours ago, and said that we're really proud of our multicultural city. The multicultural city looks a little something like this. This is stuff that was being shown, again, social media only. I think it's a little bit troubling. This is outside the Clumsy Swan. This is the kind of stuff that I was seeing last night. And then meanwhile, there was another story here letting people know that British Muslim women are feeling like this is dragging us back to the thuggery of the 1970s. Really? Because this looks pretty terroristic to me.
Right,
you think, okay, well, what's going on out there? These are a bunch of men wearing masks and balaclavas that are trying to police and patrol whether or not British men can go into a pub, and there's some women in there obviously as well, and have a pint, because I guess they're against alcohol. Now, there's some later video that shows that guy with the flag you saw running around. He actually climbs up on the roof and tries to plant the flag into the roof. There's also some videos that I saw of people kicking crosses off the top of religious hospitals. They look like they were Baptist affiliated, and they were breaking off the crucifix while the guy's saying, like, what the hell are you doing? You can't be doing that. That's interesting. This is what it looked like inside when they decided that they one person from the pub went out to have a smoke. And again, no police response to this. Kind of interesting to see. Imagine you're in a bar and you look outside and you're surrounded by a mob, and then one guy goes out and this is his experience. This doesn't seem like this is a sustainable situation.
Getting fucking in. You're gonna be. Where's Jordan?
What are they doing?
Where's Jordan?
Oh, the battery.
So I counted 10 people kicking that man in the head and kicking him on the ground and beating him into a table. It was 10 on 1 before I lost count of how many people were actually out there doing that. And they're beating on the windows of the pub. You hear the women screaming. Yep. Pack mentality, mob mentality. Nothing okay about any of this stuff. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. And it is not great that you see people on the political right that are doing it and spraying anarchy symbols and things like that. But that is what they are experiencing, little bits of that. There's not places in America that I've seen that go over well, but I only live in places where Americans live. If you live in one of the non-American places, then you might get a little bit of taste of this. And of course, the Brits are having a separate response. If you're on the right, it's thuggery and it must be condemned. And on the left, these people are just blowing off steam. It's the same BS that we saw here in the United States in 2020, where they wanted space to destroy. I don't see that same tolerance happening for the native citizens and the people that are from there that are looking at their country falling apart. Meanwhile, this pro-Palestine, take your pick, like it's been totally co-opted. And you wonder, like, how does this even happen? So we got a fun little clip here. One of you asked about it in the chat, and I will, in fact, play this. I actually covered this story a long time ago because this was memory hold. Now it's coming back up again, which makes sense. Gavin McInnes was on Joe Rogan and he blew his mind. This is not a thing that I've heard this for a couple of years. This is not new information for those of you who have been paying attention, but there is a real problem. And the problem is going to be explained in this clip, and then I'll kind of talk about it a little further. And I meant to go back and try to find out how far back it was that we talked about it, but I'm pretty confident it was back when I was sitting in a trailer. So it's well over a year ago that we covered this. Here's Gavin McInnes talking to Joe Rogan, blowing his mind about the inbreeding problem in the Arab world.
I think a part of it was inbreeding.
This is your own theory.
No. Look at
someone else
Muslims
has a theory?
and inbreeding, major problem.
I've never heard this before.
Especially with immigrants in Britain, like the Pakistanis in London. They'll have all kinds of serious inbreeding problems because that's an even smaller sample size you're dealing with.
Strap yourself in for this. 70% of all Pakistanis are inbred. And in Turkey, the amount is between 25 to 30%. More stillbirths among immigrants. A rough estimate reveals that close to half of everybody living in the Arab world is inbred. A large percentage of the parents said, this is blowing my mind. So listen to the BBC investigation in Britain several years ago revealed that at least 55% of the Pakistani community in Britain was married to a first cousin. Holy shit. BBC's research also discovered that while British Pakistanis account for just 3.4% of all births in Britain, they accounted for 30% of all British children with recessive disorders and a higher rate of infant mortality. What in the fuck? Labour Party MP has called for a ban on first cousin marriage. Medical evidence shows that one of the negative consequences of inbreeding is a 100% increase in the risk of stillbirths. Wow. That is insane.
I also read somewhere that a lot of the symptoms of inbred people are irrational rage,
Put that back up, Jamie.
fanaticism, and they end up just describing ISIS.
Look at what it says here. That with the IQ points, it says findings on intelligence research shows that if one's parents are cousins, intelligence goes down 10 to 16 IQ points. The risk of having an IQ lower than 70, criterion for being retarded, in quotes, are they using that word? Increases 400% among children from cousin marriages. Well, let me say that again. The risk of having an IQ lower than 70 increases 400% amongst children from cousin marriages. Jesus.
Yep. We talked about this. We talked about this over a year ago. This is not new information. This is something that is actually fairly staggering, but it makes perfect sense. The idea that people can be influenced because they have an incredibly low IQ and they're willing to do basically the most Neanderthal type behavior, violence, mob mentality, kicking people, no civility. This is a real thing. The Brits are seeing a little bit of it. Some people saw some of this stuff happening in American cities where there is a dominance of this. These are cultures that basically, if they're not assimilating properly, and they really need to take on American values if you live in America, if you don't want to do that, we're going to have a problem. And I don't know how long it's going to take for it to appear here, but these things are always harbingers. This has been going on in France as well. If you guys follow the work of Tommy Robinson, and I've been doing that for a long time, my wife has books on the grooming gangs and stories like Easy Meat, like we have those in our locker of books that we keep track of. These stories are not new, but they are catching prominence. And then I think the tie-in is that Google is willing to censor that stuff. So you're only going to get one side. It's right-wing thuggery, and it's the riots on these people that are not nice. Again, here they are. The clumsy swam thanks the Birmingham community and says they're proud of the multicultural community. What are you proud of? And they give some Muslim woman an opportunity to, like, these are not the problem people. The people that are literate and writing articles and are making defense, they are defending the indefensible because they are looking at this in a very different way. There's a homogeneity of response. It's pretty obvious. And for whatever reason, the British government is also backing it against the interest of many of their citizens. See if I have this article up here because this actually bothered me. How about this one? This comes from Fox, which I don't always cover out on, but it's talking about GARM. GARM is the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. It describes itself as a cross-industry initiative that started as the World Federation of Advertisers, according to a spokesperson, established in 2019 to help the advertising industry address the challenge of illegal or harmful, that's the more important piece, content on digital media platforms and its monetization via advertising. I'm confident that groups like this are the reason why we can't get any traction on YouTube. If you guys are on YouTube and you're not joining us on Rumble, we're not big on, I think I just hit 75,000 views for the entire time that I've been doing the show over on YouTube. We get that in a week on Rumble, and a Rumble is at least like it's 10% of the audience size possible. We just don't have the ability to grow because of groups like this that have gone out there and said that we're hateful. By the way, I've been on people's podcasts on YouTube and had their entire channels canceled, and I've never said anything that is dangerous or offensive other than things that are true, and I generally don't like the government. So if you are watching these in the other places, if you're not watching on free speech-based platforms, X is pretty good, but not great, not the best. Rumble just doesn't censor any of our stuff, and it monetizes us either way. But you haven't seen us promoted, have you? You've never seen this show, which is markedly better than some of the garbage that Rumble will promote. They'll put some kid who's sitting in a basement playing a video game with 20 people watching out there. Meanwhile, we'll have anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 people watching live. I don't know. It is what it is. But this group, GARM, is very interesting. They were set up in the wake of the Christchurch mosque shootings. Of course, they let you know right up front what their interests are. They wanted to stop a slew of the Islamophobia, and so they went and pushed against things. This is what Elon Musk has been fighting against. And it's a real problem. It continues to be a real problem because money is where all of these places go. They go and they shut off the money supply, and this is what your issues with censorship are really going to come down to. It doesn't matter whether or not the platform censors you. If they can't afford to exist, then they're going to be crushed. And groups like GARM, which that is such a dumb-looking logo. It looks like a fertilized egg, or it looks like an ovum and a sperm like penetrating it. There needs to be a tail behind it. And then we can make it look like a bomb. In any case, they are the groups that are basically acting like a cartel, trying to shut down the monetary stream. And this is what Elon Musk was going to war with. This is why they have problems with him. They also have problems with Joe Rogan, don't they? Let me do a quick little read for my friends over at MyPillow. If you guys want to continue to support people who are also censored and also get shut down, you can go to mypillow.com/Kyle, Kyle. At the end of the website, you'll get, or you can use that as the promo code, you'll get the same discount that you'll get from anybody else, up to 50% off on various promos. I did not look at this week's promos, but I will do it next time. You guys can check it out. The links are in the show description, mypillow.com/Kyle, if you want to support Mike Lindell and the folks that are working there underneath Tim Waltz. Yep, that's where they're based. Maybe they'll move. A lot of communism kind of attitudes in that area. Not a big fan. Let's talk about the last little story here that I've got from the censorship regime, which is Joe Rogan. Just had a Netflix special. You can see we got a little bit of little Joe Rogan talking there. I've got a clip from it. I don't think it's particularly offensive. I can understand why people on MSNBC would be upset about it. So they think that it is he's a mouthpiece for his fans' interest. His comedy special is not there to teach anything. It's not there. It's not even funny. It's heavy on bro complaints, light on comedy. I think it's freaking hilarious. I think it's absolutely hilarious because Joe, is it the best thing he's ever done? No, but he's smart. He's clever. He's got a style. He doesn't have to try as hard because he's so successful. And his comedy's still good. So let's do a little piece of the Joe Rogan special that is not fun. And then we'll wrap up with some stuff like a real wheelie bin, American style, not British flaming wheelie bins, like a legit wheelie bin. You guys will appreciate this. Meanwhile, this is what Joe is getting, he's getting panned on the leftist side. They're hating on him. He could buy them all a couple times over, so I don't think he really cares.
It's just good to see everybody having a good time. The country's almost back to normal before World War III. COVID was just so strange. We lost a lot of people during COVID, and most of them are still alive. Yeah, right? Yeah, there's a lot of people that I don't fuck with anymore. Before COVID, I would have told you that vaccines are the most important invention in human history. After COVID, I'm like, I don't think we went to the moon. I think Michelle Obama's got a dick. I think Pizzagate is real. I think there's direct energy weapons in Antarctica. I'm just kidding. I don't think Michelle Obama's got a dick, but I believe all that other shit.
I'm kind of like 50-50 on that one. I don't even know, but most of those, I think, yeah, he's probably correct. I don't know if we went to the moon either, guys. Like, who knows? That stuff's funny. What it says is something really fundamentally true, which is what MSNBC has missed out on, which is the fact that we've got people that have destroyed the credibility of all the institutions, and we don't trust them anymore. So how could you trust them when they lied to you? And now everything is suspect. All the things that you would have otherwise just been like, obviously, my doctor has my best interest in mind. And then you're like, I think my doctor told us that we couldn't go look at a grandmother who was dying because, and that person had to die behind a glass pane of, in a hospital room, in isolation, with a tube down their throat that they didn't need. Isn't that problematic? I like it when they let the veil slip, though. My friends over at Catholic Vote have this story coming out. If you have not read today's Loop, check it out. There's a lot of stuff about there in the abortion debate. This one is quite good. Male Democrats are under scrutiny in the abortion debate ahead of the election. Why is it? Because Pete Buttigieg got out there and said, we're a more free country. Men are also more free in a country where we have a president who stands up for things like access to abortion. Men are more free. That is the quiet part out loud, isn't it? Catholic Vote tweeted that thing out talking about it. Why in the world does a gay man who has basically no possibility of making women pregnant, if he's actually gay, which I do say as a question mark, why would it be that Pete Buttigieg has any stake in abortion? Doesn't. It's because it's part of this godless regime. Because if you can throw out all the traditional values, if you can say that babies are bad except when we do in vitro and we're going to do surrogacy so that like gay men can have little babies running around, like I don't get it. You get a choice. You can, if you're gay and you want to have a baby, you kind of have to not be gay. That's just how that works. If you're not attracted to women, why are you trying to make babies? And why on earth do you think that you get to raise something? It's a bummer. This is your cross to bear. That is the cross-eyed bear. There are choices and they cut off the other avenues of approach. I don't need to judge you for being gay, even if there's certain biblical, that's not the political thing I want to get involved in. Why do men need to get rid of abortion unless we are trying to do, or they want to encourage abortion? Why do they need to get rid of babies unless they are trying to have consequence-free sex, which is negating the value of women? It's so obvious. It's so clear and it's evil. The idea that you would have this happening in 2024 is the craziest thing if you lived through the 80s and the 90s. And most of this audience has. Like, you remember that the Clintons talked safe, legal, and rare. How far we have come in, 30 years? It's truly wild to see them saying these things in an open forum. And they're not even ashamed of it. Like, that's the Secretary of Transportation. He was considered to be a possibility for the VP run. Thankfully, we were spared the Buttigieg, Kamala Harris ticket, because that would have been a little bit too much for the comedy. We're going to have Tim Walz. He's less fun. More comedy, but less fun. But they are dropping the veil on this stuff. And if that's what they're running on, because that's what they're running on, give me a break. It's not all lost. I want you guys to be able to say that. We do have some fun things. We are going to do a really good little wheelie bin clip. So I've got some more fun. Make sure I didn't miss any of our good clips here. I did not. All right. So I will now regale you with our first version of the palate cleanser. We need a couple of them because it has been kind of gross. A truly American wheelie bin. Then we'll do a 5-star review. And then we'll go back to the subtle racism of the Kamala Harris campaign and why I think that she doesn't have real traction. So here is an American. How many times have I said wheelie bin? About 20 times? You'll see why. Here we go. Yo! Did you see that? That's how I know America's not lost. There's a dude riding on a motorcycle, firing like unlimited rockets or whatever the heck those things were, Roman candle type things, just exploding in the sky on a highway doing 65 or 80 miles an hour. It's not lost if there's that guy. I'm just saying. Looks like fun. It looks stupid, by the way. I'm a paramedic. That looks like a guy who's going to be making a trip to a hospital very soon in a very, very bad state. But nothing more American than that. Just saying, screw the safety, screw the rules. I'm blowing stuff up, and I'm doing it on a motorcycle while standing, and someone's going to film it. We just got demonetized, I guarantee you, on YouTube because we played that little clip, and that's not considered fair use to them, so I'll have to argue that out. That's okay. Another reason for you to join us on... That is not what I meant to do. Let's do the 5-star review of the day. This one's a little bit longer, but I will share it. Gus Steed, or Stid, appreciate this one. Love your show. 5 stars. Your show's the best part of my day. That's very flattering. I love that you had your dad on the other day. You absolutely need to do that more often. We got that message a lot loud and clear, so we will have my dad come back. He's a fun guy to have on. Also, thank you for saying on Friday that the first thing that happens when you come upon an emergency situation is panic. You never know what's going to hit with people, and this one did, apparently, for Gus. He said, I found my mother laying near death in the house that I grew up in last November. I thought she was dead, and a small movement made me realize that she was alive, and I freaked out, and I panicked, and then I took the steps that I learned in BLS. I felt terrible that I didn't handle it like a pro, and I'm relieved that I'm not the only one. I wish you were still here in New Mexico. Well, I'll tell you what. Everybody panics at some point in time. You are always going to be overwhelmed. If you see a bunch of angry mobs standing outside of your pub, you will likely panic first. That's okay. Do that first, and then get to work, whatever the thing is. And it might be getting like 50 dudes out there, breaking a leg off a chair, tell him to get the hell off your friend who's getting his head kicked in, or pool cues. I don't know what the answer is. Hopefully you do. Don't let the first time that you deal with an emergency be the first time that you've thought about that emergency. When you got downtime, you should be prepping for contingencies. When I sit in a car, if I'm in a parking lot, my first thoughts are, what if someone comes up and tries to carjack you with my kids? Am I getting out? Am I staying in? Am I driving? Am I able to switch over? Like, if you haven't thought these things out, you will lose. So prepare yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be repairing and not from a good place. Here's a last little palate cleanse for you guys. This one is going on that message of racism that has been going in the Kamala Harris routine, the black women and then the white women for Kamala and the white dudes for Kamala, the racially segregated fundraisers. That's always good. Here's a little taste of what that might look like if you did it in your actual life. And if you're missing this, this is a white male who looks like one of my friends who's a Green Beret, wearing like ear piercings. He has like thick ear piercings and gauges, and the woman has a bunch of facial piercings and tattoos, so she's obviously like pretty Americanized here, but she's acting like a tribal rube. Very funny, and enjoy.
Time to do our part, white women. Black women cannot do it on their own. Did you want to go somewhere? I forgot you black people don't know how to get IDs. I got you. I'm white. What you doing? You trying to read? Oh, I forgot the education system failed you because you're black. I got you. I'm white. What you doing? You trying to use the computer? I forgot black people don't know how to use computers. Here you go. I got you. I'm white.
It's perfect. That's exactly how it looks. You know how I know there's not racism in this country, at least not at the level that they would tell you, because that couple exists. And I've lived next to couples like that, and they have the same sense of humor. They make fun of the people that do that kind of stuff. So good on them for sharing that. That was from, like, I think it's not_African hippie. I don't know who she is, but she's funny. She's got a good sense of humor. She's willing to engage in a little playful behavior with whoever that guy is. I assume some sort of romantic interest. That's like the way that I saw us going in the 90s. For some reason, we've backpedaled, but not everywhere. Good for them for making a little bit of lighthearted jokes. And as we kind of leave on the lighthearted jokes and you think about the censorship and you think about all the kind of things we did cover down on, I want you to walk away with that mentality of the guard tower. It's the thing that is going to be kind of the reflection that I have for the rest of this week, especially in light of Tulsi Gabbard being watched by our government. There is a need for security. We saw it in England. But when it turns on its own citizens, when it's faced inward and not to an external threat, and especially when it brings an external threat inward and then protects it by attacking those who have been paying for it for decades, things are upside down. So we know that. Just be on your guard. Don't let it go to your head. Take a deep breath. Even CNN says it. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. A lot of this stuff is fake. The real thing is that government tyranny is coming at us, and it only stops when we say no. That means locally you don't allow it to happen. You cannot be letting this stuff happen. In any case, we'll get through it all together, or we'll laugh about it as we slowly find ourselves back into a darker and darker corner. At least we'll have our backs to each other. So we'll see you guys again on Wednesday. And don't forget, I'm going to be doing Timcast on Thursday. There's a decent chance we're going to skip one show this week. We'll have to figure out which one it's going to be. It might be on Thursday. Timcast Thursday evening if you guys want to join us, and they're over on YouTube. So check it out. Otherwise, catch you tomorrow morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you've liked this video as we log off. God bless you. See you then.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.